Being born in the 90s, The Lion King is one of the earliest memories I have of Disney animation. As a toddler growing up in Asia, it's difficult to forget every time you hear a sound as unique and piercing as the rise of the African sun to symbolize new life, and a spine-tingling song which ends in what I think is the most epic cold open in movie history. The year is 2019, and in July, the live-action CGI remake of The Lion King is about to hit theaters. Despite being a crowd favorite, in the past 25 years since the movie's release, there have been many criticisms of the film for what it represents, specifically the messages Disney has been accused of spreading. As someone who loves The Lion King, it's not easy for me to hear these criticisms, and my first thoughts were of disappointment. Did I grow up liking an ideologically flawed movie? Will these criticisms make me like the movie less? Is my childhood ruined now? As an adult in this modern day where political correctness is at its height, I think it's worth exploring these criticisms and how significant they are to how we perceive the film today. So join me for the next few minutes as we delve into the ups and possibly downs of The Lion King's legacy. Spoilers ahead for any poor soul who hasn't seen the movie, but I was swept up in this story of a young lion cub named Simba, who is promised the world by his king of a father, Mufasa. Simba's evil uncle Scar plots to usurp the king and kills Mufasa, putting the blame on Simba, forcing him to run away so Scar can be king. Simba does run away from home and is raised by a carefree meerkat and warthog, and eventually finds the strength and courage to return to his debilitated homeland to bring order and peace by defeating Scar. From the rich hand-drawn animation to the timeless characters as well as the unforgettable soundtrack and score, to this day my favorite Hans Zimmer score, I thought The Lion King deserved its place among the stars as an all-time great. When it was released in 1994, The Lion King was praised by critics and audiences alike, earning $968 million worldwide, which at the time made it the second highest grossing film of all time. In 1994 alone, merchandise based on the movie earned over $1 billion. It currently has a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, is the 45th best movie of all time on IMDb, won 2 Oscars, spawned 3 direct-to-video movies, 2 TV series, several video games, a Broadway musical. Yeah, you get the picture. This is a pretty influential movie. So, what is there to criticize?
She knows you, but she wants to eat him. And everybody's okay with this? Did I miss something?
The Lion King has faced controversy and criticism ever since its original release, and in the face of an increasingly connected world and an arguably more politically correct one, those criticisms may or may not have aged very well. Now, it's easy for someone to say, well, it's a cartoon made for little children in the 90s. What's the big deal? Personally, I think that explanation isn't enough, and it makes me feel like there's some metaphorical band-aid that I'm afraid to rip off. So let's briefly touch on a few of these criticisms, then consider their validity. First, there's the Kimba stuff. It was revealed around the time of The Lion King's release that many of the characters and even scenes bear a striking resemblance to the 1960s Japanese show Kimba the White Lion, and this rumor was intensified when reports surfaced saying that members of The Lion King's crew seemed to know about the Japanese series. And to be honest, I don't think I can defend The Lion King here. The side-by-side comparisons alone sorta make me feel like there was at least a little bit of plagiarism involved, although because I grew up with The Lion King, it doesn't necessarily take away from my love of the film. If you want to learn more about Kimba the White Lion, you can check out Ali Katz's videos on the controversy. Very informative, and it's linked in the description below. More controversy was stirred when the film was accused of being racist. The basis of this is that the villainous hyenas in the film, who are relegated to the dark, seedy part of the Pride Lands, have voices that are associated with African American and Hispanic members of the lower class, as well as the mentally disabled.
Well, Banzai, what have we got here?
I don't know, Shenzi. What do you think, Ed?
While I don't think this is necessarily racist, considering there are people of color in the main cast of Good Guys, I do sort of see where the discriminatory stereotyping comes into play. There is, in inverted commas, a sort of ghetto feel with these hyenas. While it can be argued that it was the filmmaker's intention to accentuate the poverty of the hyenas by associating them with the less privileged, it probably isn't as entertaining for people who actually talk like that to see how they are being represented on screen. My take on this, filmmakers might be free to make what they want and cast who they think is the best fit for the role, and I'm not personally offended by it at all, but in today's world I feel like it's becoming increasingly obvious that representation matters, and this is something I feel the remake of The Lion King can address. Moving on to yet another complaint about The Lion King, there is this idea that brute force triumphs over intelligence. It's easy to see where this comes from, as this very commonly shown scene demonstrates.
Well, as far as brains go, I got the lion's share, but when it comes to brute strength, I'm afraid I'm at the shallow end of the gene pool.
Based on this exposition, more than a few people correlate Scar's intelligence to defeat and Mufasa and Simba's physical strength to nobility and victory, and therefore the movie is trying to tell us that brute strength triumphs over intelligence. I find this argument flawed in two ways. Number one, what reason would there be to trust Scar when he differentiates himself and Mufasa? I mean, he is portrayed as a villain after all. In addition, it doesn't mean that Scar isn't physically strong or that Mufasa isn't intelligent. In fact, both characters show both strength in mind and body in several instances throughout the movie. But the bigger flaw in this argument is that it confuses correlation with causation, meaning Scar doesn't get defeated because his intelligence is inferior to physical strength. He's defeated because his obsession over power, arrogance, and backstabbing nature caused everyone around him to turn on him in the end. Simba achieves victory in the end by overcoming his guilt and fear to overthrow Scar, whose attitude wasn't very kingly at all. At this point, I'm thinking that's enough criticism discussion for one day, but there is one more topic we haven't talked about yet, and it's a big one. Why are all these animals bowing to Mufasa and Simba at the start of the movie? Aren't these animals like prey and the lions the predators that eat the prey? Mufasa explains at the start of the movie that
when we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life.
Implying that everyone is part of a fixed order of things, and that everyone should accept their current place in this order. When that balance is upset by Scar, we see the Pride Lands fall into decay, and when Simba restores order in the end, the Pride Lands suddenly flourish again. Critics have likened this preservation of order to totalitarianism. Totalitarianism is defined as a system of government that is centralized, dictatorial, and requires complete subservience to the state. To put things into perspective, totalitarian states have included Hitler's Nazi Germany, Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union, and North Korea's Kim Dynasty. Okay, this was a little bit harder to talk about, so let me explain my interpretation. I think the criticism stems from the thought that the lions are like royalty, and the other animals are their subjects who have to accept their place. And thus, the message here is that whatever our social class, we also have to accept our place in society. But in actual fact, these animals are of course different species. In my opinion, this quote-unquote order of things refers to something people around the world learn in high school biology. The food web. The food web is an interconnected set of relationships between living things in an ecosystem. In this simple example, we see that the grass is eaten by the grasshoppers, who are eaten by the birds, who are then eaten by the foxes. What happens when, for example, a disease causes the grasshoppers to die out? Well, in this context, the bird's food supply is drastically reduced, and the bird may start dying out as well. This in turn causes the fox to hunt more rabbit to survive, and the rabbit population similarly decreases dramatically. In this way, the balance is broken. It is in this way that the Lion King's circle of life works. Taking one's rightful place doesn't have to mean staying where you are in the social hierarchy, but maintaining an organism's very specialized position in the food web, in order to keep the checks and balances of the ecosystem working. In biology, they even have a name for this specialized position. They call it an ecological niche. I think this is one interpretation of the Lion King's philosophy, but I am not here to say that the totalitarianism interpretation is without basis. I think there is an argument for that too, but I'd like to offer an alternative viewpoint on the basis that, well, the characters in this movie are different species of animals.
One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
And this'll all be mine?
Everything.
So there we have it. We've talked about the major controversies and criticisms of The Lion King. If you thought any of that was a little bit too deep and confusing, then let me offer you a chance to take a step back. Let's look at the big picture of The Lion King and consider how much realism is in the movie. Now, I'm not going into the super specifics of realism, but I would recommend this fantastic video by Patrick H. Willems, who asks why people are so caught up about whether a movie is realistic or not. I've linked this video in the description below. But in summary, The Lion King doesn't quite conform to total realism, simply due to all the talking animals, the fantastical elements, the fact that our characters break into song every 10 minutes. The movie has many elements that are the opposite of realism. According to Patrick, what is more important in this context is the verisimilitude of the movie. In Patrick's easy to understand words, verisimilitude is the concept where a movie doesn't have to adhere to some imposed concept of reality, simply its own concept of reality. In other words, The Lion King should set up all the rules in the world of the Pride Lands, and then it should proceed to follow these rules from the start to the end. In this way, it's fine for the animals to bow to the lions. It's fine that they can talk to each other and sing with one another. It's fine that they are elements of the divine and the spiritual world. That's the verisimilitude of the movie. Its principles, its inner truth for the characters in this world. And considering this, I suddenly feel much better about my love of The Lion King. Whether you love the film or hate what it represents, what matters is that your opinions are your own. You have a right to feel however you want about movies because, after all, the beauty of cinema is the fact that it's so subjective. The Lion King is not flawless, yes, and it will continue to inspire debate for many years to come. I think some of the criticisms are valid, and for others, not so much, depending on how you interpret it. And so, through a bit of despair and growth, I conclude this video by saying unapologetically that the 1994 version of The Lion King is still one of my all-time favorite films. What's up guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned something new. I've been wanting to make a video on this topic for a really long time now, so I'm glad I finally done it. And I've done it in conjunction with the release of the live action remake of The Lion King. So if you have seen that movie, let me know what you thought of the remake in the comments below. Do you think it was a worthy live action remake or was it an unnecessary movie? I would love to know. If you learned something new from this video, then share it on all your social media platforms to your friends. I'd really appreciate that. And if you want to see more from me, then click that subscribe button above, hopefully for more video essays, movie reviews, and the like. As always, I will be back with another video for you guys. So until next time, have a great week ahead, maximum hype, and peace out.